Welcome back to the lunch table, food for thought. I'm Nico Blitz. Make sure you hit that subscribe button at the lower left-hand corner. We're also on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, YouTube, iHeartRadio app. Shout out to my next guest. He is, I believe, from New York, at least somewhere in that area. And I was introduced to him because, you know me, I'm up on game with all the Asian artists. Shout out to Lately. Shout out to Flannel Albert. Shout out to this guy. He has this record out called Ferragamo, a kind of mixture between kind of like the trap sounds you hear today and a little bit more melodic than most. And I really like his rap style. He goes by the name of Kazi. What's poppin', man?
It's poppin', bro.
I think I just found you on IG like
Yes,
not too long ago. I think it was like a remix to Swervin' by A Boogie with a Hoodie that you had on. I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Check this out. Then I checked out the rest of your page. I'm like, I need this guy.
Most def. No, that was a fun one. A Boogie's definitely one of my favorite artists. And yeah, from New York. Grew up downtown, so he's kind of a hometown hero right now. He's going crazy. So
yeah. There's not too many people holding up that, I guess, the championship belt for New York City right now.
Yeah.
It's kind of dry for New York.
It's a big topic of discussion over there. It almost has been leveling everybody up because it feels like there's an open spot. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's making everybody go hard right now.
To be honest, I think your biggest rapper right now is Tekashi 6ix9ine. If I'm being really honest,
even now,
biggest.
I get his streaming numbers probably could justify that for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know about the rest of this year though, because he's gonna be gone for a minute.
Oh yeah, he'll be gone.
Space.
My favorite rapper outside of like in New York would probably have to be Joey Badass.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, I grew up listening to him. You know,
Uh-huh.
I'm definitely aging myself. I'm on the younger side, but no. I mean,
How old are you?
I'm 19. I'm turning 20
You're
next
19?
month.
Holy shit, dude.
I'm gonna be 20 in July.
So you haven't even had a legal drink yet.
Nah, I haven't had a drink at all. What are you talking about? Never. But yeah, Joey. I guess growing up, Joey was definitely. I mean, when I was like probably 13, 14, I started listening to him when 1999 came out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to kind of be around Pro Era a little bit, being in the city and stuff too. So it's good. They're good influences to have for sure.
Oh, of course,
for sure.
You know, New York's just
Hold it
the
down.
mecca of hip hop. That's where hip hop started and everything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, did you know you wanted to be a rapper growing up?
Kind of. I think in my soul I did. I grew
Yeah.
up playing a lot of different types of music. So I started playing piano, playing bass, playing guitar. I was in a bunch of rock bands and stuff growing up. Yeah.
That's crazy. What was the
Yeah.
name of your rock band?
So I was in one called Outer Child when I was like 10 until I was around 13. I had a piano.
10 years old?
Yeah, bro. I had a piano teacher who like was a singer-songwriter. She went to Manhattan School of Music for jazz piano. So she had like kind of an unorthodox way of teaching piano. And that involved a lot of pop theory and rock theory and just like ear training and stuff. Not so much sheet music, but more just like understanding music as a whole. You know what I mean? So that was really dope for me to get starting really young.
So wait, I don't get it. So then there's like pop theory and rock theory in piano?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's pop theory and rock theory like in whatever instrument you want, but it's just like, you know, piano's a really good instrument to learn theory because it's so visual.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you have a keyboard laid out in front of you, it's really easy to understand what's going on and be able to kind of connect what you're hearing with something that you're seeing tangibly. You know what I mean? So piano's a really good way to start. So I started like that, and then a bunch of other students were playing other instruments, except me. And so she was trying to put together a band of a bunch of her students, and she was like, the only one I don't have left is bass, and you have really good rhythm, so you should learn bass. And so she got me one.
Shit.
Yeah, she taught me she gave me like one crash course real quick, but I kind of taught myself the rest. And then I was in that band for a while. It was cool. We did like a bunch of videos. We did background vocals on a record for Pete Seeger.
What the hell?
Yeah, it was like mad random. Someone found us and was like, this is super dope. And then right around the end of when we were a band, we did like an American Eagle campaign. It was crazy. It was like it picked up really fast.
So were you guys like touring for American Eagle or what?
I wish, bro. Nah, we just did a shoot. It was cool. They just like drove us up to Woodstock, and we like did. They had like a big barn, and we just like jammed for a little bit. We played Seven Nation Army like 10 times while they took pictures, and then like called it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and at 13 years old, your mind must have been just blown at that point.
And I was always into like fashion and like shit like that, you know. So it was a cool kind of like clashing of worlds for me. But then after that, like I started I had been listening to hip hop that whole time, but not making it. So kind of from writing songs in GarageBand, I kind of like shifted towards production and making beats. And I was
Shout
like,
out to
this,
GarageBand. I feel like everybody just started off over there.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I talk about this all the time because I think that the DAW that people use now a lot of the time depends on what year they started. Because I started when GarageBand was really popular. I was past like the point where like I think a lot of people start on FL when it was Fruity Loops and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So if you're in GarageBand, it makes a lot of sense to just transition to Logic once you start to kind of outgrow GarageBand because it's the same interface kind of, you know?
I mean, shout out to what we're using right now.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I mean, I make all my songs in Logic. I mix them in Pro Tools, but I make them in my creative process is in Logic. So
that's kind of interesting because being around a whole bunch of producers, they don't necessarily use Logic. They'll stick to like FL Studio or even Pro Tools. Yeah. And it's kind of rare that I find someone who uses Logic.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was just because it was like a natural progression from songwriting. GarageBand's really good for songwriting and for laying down different parts. And that was when I was doing rock stuff and singer-songwriter stuff and kind of trying to write jazz parts and things like that. So it's a super kind of versatile program to do different things. But yeah, I mean, if you're making beats, I think if you're starting out that way, it makes more sense to use like FL or Ableton. Those are more efficient.
Did you find a way? I mean, at that age, were you able to connect all the real life instruments into GarageBand, or were you simply just like using the keyboard?
Bro, it was crazy. Okay, so let me tell you how I did this shit. It's ridiculous. When I first started, I was just messing with MIDI, but I could play other instruments. I didn't understand like interfaces and like how to really record live. So I was like 12 when I started. So I had a Zoom like an H2, like a handheld recorder. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And I would record. I would put the track in my headphones from my laptop, and I would put the Zoom recorder in front of my guitar, and I would record it, and then I would put the SD card into my laptop, and then drop the file in because I didn't know how to mic shit up. So that's, I mean, actually think when I first started, I had, it was that, and then, I mean, I still do that now for parts. If I'm not in a studio, I'll use like a voice memo and like.
So technically, you weren't even recording the audio; you were just grabbing the audio from a
recorder and then dropping it in.
That's hella funny.
Yeah, and then my first feature I did was in a Guitar Hero USB mic into a computer.
Shut the fuck up.
Into GarageBand, yeah.
Dude, you're like the definition of finesse.
Yeah, bro. I mean, I was like, just working with what I had. It's funny because I didn't really know what I was missing. I wasn't like, oh, I need an interface. I was just like, let me figure out how to make this shit work, Yeah. So it started with that, and then I mean, it's been a really natural, organic progression through just like me learning how to produce and like record myself and stuff like that. Because I still record all my songs at home.
So even now, I can only imagine that you have an even more updated system.
Oh, for sure.
And everything just must be even more bread and butter now.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much just like a glorified version of what I started with. I still just use a Scarlett. I talk about this all the time because I meet a lot of people that feel like they can't like put out music or make music if they don't have the right equipment. And I'm like, first of all, I did that feature on a USB mic, and if you have a good engineer, they can make anything sound really good. So that was that. But no, I mean, right now I use a Scarlett. I have like a probably $150 Audio Technica microphone. It's like a little condenser mic. And I just make sure it's quiet when I'm recording. And then it's a lot of, I learned I had a studio for a while last year where I was engineering for some people, just like some friends and stuff, just kind of to help them out because I had learned some of this stuff. And I was like, I might as well show other people how to do this. So I was doing that for a while. I got Waves, and Waves is obviously amazing, and they have a million different plugins that have everything you need. So at least for my like reference demo purposes, that's like enough. And then I just kind of ship it off to my engineer.
It just sounds like you're not the type of person to make any excuses.
Nah, dude. I mean, like, I started so young, that I think it's like I was lucky enough to be in a position to do cool shit before I thought I could do it then. So like my idea that I could kind of do whatever I wanted if I kind of tried to figure it out and like actually spend time on it started really early. I was able my parents and my piano teacher probably planted that seed pretty early for me. So yeah, I think that's where that comes from. I don't know. I started mad young, so it's just like all I remember is being like, all right, if I enjoy this enough to spend like a kind of stupid amount of time working on it until it sounds good, then that's
you might as well perfect it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's how I feel. That's how I kind of found music in the first place too. Is I was like, well, I'm doing this instead of my homework a lot for several hours a day, so it's like I should probably just kind of pursue it and make it happen.
So let me ask you this: did you graduate high school or college?
I graduated from high school.
Okay.
I was at the end of high school at the high school I went to. You have a month and the last month of senior year to do like a senior project. And I had already landed an internship at Fool's Gold Records that summer. So I was kind of just like, can I just start this internship a month early and have that be my project? And they were like, sure.
Yeah.
So I actually dropped my first song on my last day of high school. It was April 27th.
What was the song
2017. It's called Options. And that one
I
was,
saw that it got picked up by like Elevator or something, right?
that one was Hot New Hip Hop. Yeah. It was crazy. It was my first song, and I honestly think that like it did as well as it did because it was my first song. Because I knew a lot of people from music that hadn't actually seen me put out solo material. They'd seen me do shows and stuff, but that I hadn't released anything. And I actually hadn't really shown people that I was even doing hip hop as an artist yet. They knew I was making beats, but they didn't know I was like singing and rapping and stuff like that. So yeah, I put it out on my last day of high school, and it was just like I just got lucky. I don't know, like people it popped off on SoundCloud a little bit. Had like 10,000 plays on SoundCloud in the first week, and I was like, oh
That's
shit,
crazy.
this is getting real. And then Hot New Hip Hop picked it up, which was also like I literally listen.
The gem.
Press is such a kind of crazy elusive thing, I think, for independent artists, because it feels like there's so many people emailing these blogs and stuff, and it's hard to get noticed and stuff. For Hot New Hip Hop, I literally just did the submission box on their website, and they liked it, and they wrote it up. Like,
that's it.
Like, if it's good and they get to it, obviously, like, they get a lot of submissions, not just Hot New Hip Hop, but all the blogs, but sometimes it gets through, and that was a good example of it.
Well, that's why I think a part of it's really just laziness, because half the time I'll get a whole bunch of people emailing me like, hey, how can I get my artist here, da-da-da. It's like, cool, just send the music, and then at that point, I'll just decide if I want to pursue that person, like, on this platform or not.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is that I see people at the early stages of their career, oh, I need a manager, I need a publicist, I need A, B, and C. It's like, but did you even try doing everything on your own, right? Like, for instance, this one artist who I work with closely, his name is Dan Boy. He's from Hawaii. And during our interview, he had told me that he got his first record out to become the #1 reggae song in Hawaii. What? And I was like, bro, how'd you do that? He was like, dude, I was hustling my ass off. I was sending the shit to every radio station, every Hawaii blog, every reggae blog, and that's how it became #1. I was like, dude, that's tight. That means you could do it on your own.
Yeah.
And once you know you can do all that shit on your own, if you want to even maximize your progress even more, that's when you come in and you say, okay, now I need a manager, because now I need like even more hands on deck. Yeah. Now I need a publicist, because now I want my music to go even farther.
Exactly. That's when I dropped Options, I think I sent 75 or 76 emails to like every blog I could find, because my first song, I was like, I'm gonna aim high, obviously, but I was like, let me find every independent small blog I can find that might like this and just like try. And I think I got like 7 placements maybe, but it was like I wouldn't have gotten those 7 if I hadn't sent all 75 or 76 of those emails, you know. And then I mean, I definitely agree that like you don't need a manager until you like really need a manager. You know, there's stuff you can do by yourself, and obviously that depends on like, I know people that are in school, that's a little harder, obviously, because it's like just a time thing. But like, if you really want it, you can figure it out. Yeah, that's really it. I mean, like, I know a lot of producers too that are just like, you know, like the whole bedroom producer thing has become such a thing over the past couple of years. I think with people like Cash Money AP and like DJ Pain One and people like that who have just like kind of paved the way for like internet money, obviously figuring out how to kind of sell beats on the internet without ever really having to leave your house. And that's really just a hustle thing too, you know? Yeah. But it's crazy just how much, I mean, people make a living off of that.
Well, because I think the idea is that, like, as an artist, I think everybody thinks that their shit is, like, hot shit. Yeah. Like, it's the greatest shit in the world. So then it's just going to get picked up naturally. But then the other half of it's like, no, you need to send it out to everybody. You need to make yourself known, because you can be a bedroom producer, but if you don't know how to network outside of just your bedroom, your shit's never going to go anywhere. Yeah. Like, it could get picked up, but that's like a 1 in a million chance, because there's so many more people trying to do the exact same thing that you're doing.
For sure. I think it also depends on where you're located too, because I'm in New York, and it's just like there's so many people. I've been talking about this all week with people from LA while I'm here, because it's such a different thing. But a lot of people move to New York for music to get noticed, because they feel like it's such an industry base. So they're like, oh, let me go here, be closer to what's going on. But it's like, first of all, if everybody does that, you're just making it harder for yourself. Yeah. Second of all, New York is already such a big city, you know? So it's just like, it's such an oversaturated market in general, regardless of what city you're in, but especially in New York. And I assume in LA too, there's a lot going on.
Well, That's why you see people like Brockhampton, for example, who are from like middle of nowhere, Texas.
Yeah.
That's why they pop off, because there's nobody else from there.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you will get people from like a Fresno or a Las Vegas really pop off because there's nobody who represents that city.
Yeah.
Prime example, J. Cole. Nobody knew where Fayetteville was fucking 10 years ago.
That's a fact.
But because he's the only one representing Fayetteville, you have literally, you damn near have everybody from Fayetteville like pushing you forward.
Yeah.
Now, let me tell you this. I don't know how many people are from Fayetteville or live in Fayetteville, but
clearly.
There's enough.
Yeah.
There's enough to just push you forward.
Yeah. I always look at Lil Mosey as a really good example of that too. He's from Seattle, which Seattle's a pretty big city. It's not necessarily like the middle of nowhere, but it's always, I feel like it's a very industrial city. And personally, as someone from the East Coast looking at from like a purely outsider perspective, like I don't know really what that Seattle music scene looks like, but I know him, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's easy. I think it's just, like you were saying, it's easier to get behind someone if there's just like one clear person that's like really putting on for your area.
So then what do you do being somebody from New York City, knowing that there's so many people just trying to flood the industry in your city?
Come to LA.
Motherfuckers are going to move to my city, so I'm moving out.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, one thing that's been helpful for me is that I am college age, you know, so all of my friends are all over the country now in different places. In this coming fall, I would be going into junior year if I was in school. So that helped just in terms of just breaking out of New York to start with, because like having dropped, the timing worked out because I dropped my first song at the end of senior year. So like right after that, that's when people started sharing it, and that's right when they started branching out. So that helped me plant roots in a lot of places. But I think it's also, like I was like half joking about coming to LA. It's like actively pursuing stuff that's not in New York is really helpful too. Like I was able to perform at South by this year.
Oh shit.
Which was sick, yeah. And it was just like it was the first time I'd done a couple college shows. Like I did SUNY Purchase and I did Amherst in Massachusetts, just on some Northeast kind of smaller shows. But then coming to South by and performing at a festival where it's like not only are you in a different city and in a different region of the country, but it's like most people that are at that show, because it's South by, are also from all over the country. So it's just like performing at colleges. I think is really valuable because it's like, if you're performing for 50 people in New York, that's cool. But if you're performing for 50 people that are from like maybe 20 different states, that domino effect of just like your stuff being spread out is really powerful, I think.
Yeah,
so.
And then at that point, you just gotta hope that your shit is good enough to influence them to tell somebody else.
Yeah, and that's why I prefer to honestly just like have someone see me perform. Like if I need to explain to someone what I do, I'd rather have them come to a show than like try to explain like, oh, my music is kind of this or that. It's like, no, just like come see it, you know. Personally, I think I make all of my music to perform. Obviously, I want it to sound good if you're listening to, but I think the best songs are the ones that you could listen to by yourself and you could also turn out to live. That's like, I try to make everything kind of somewhere in between that.
Oh yeah, of course. Because the last thing you want is to be an artist who makes an extremely great song, but then by the time you hit stage, it's like, yo, you don't sound anything like what the performance track or what the actual track sounds like.
Yeah. I know a lot of people that are like rappers in New York. Like you're saying, New York is a very hip hop city, similar to Philly. I think I've been hearing that about Philly a lot. It's like you can't not be able to rap out there. Like even if you're kind of singing or if you're in like kind of a crossover lane, like you gotta know how to rap.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people that are like that in New York, and it's like some of them are so wordplay based and so like genius in that way that it's like they can write stuff that they can record and they can punch it, you know, and they can like make it happen on record. But then when they try to perform it, like I know people that just be writing stuff that they can't, or is impossible to perform. It's not that they can't perform it. It's just like it's so crazy because it's so lyrical, and it's like I try to be somewhere in between.
Or they don't practice enough.
But no, some of my friends are like really, really crazy lyricists, and it's like, but it's definitely both. I've seen both in New York for sure.
But then, you know, even since we're talking about like lyricism and all that, it for me, like boom bap rap is by far the best type of hip hop that you can get, right? In my opinion. But when it comes to performing that type of shit, it comes to a point where your audience is so quick to tap out because sometimes you could be too conscious that they don't know what the fuck you're saying.
Yeah, I think it's you have to have some kind of combination of the two. Like not even just in hip hop, but in any genre. I think you have to be saying something that people can relate with, or at least something that's fun to sing. You know. Personally, I always tell people the reason I make music in the first place is because I was able, like my parents brought me to a lot of concerts when I was younger, and I hadn't found any other experience that was as exciting as that.
What was your most memorable concert with your parents?
Dude, I saw Bruce Springsteen at the Meadowlands, which is a giant stadium in New Jersey, when I was like 8. And I was like, "Jeez, this is the most people I've ever seen in one place." And it's like, I had been to like baseball games and stuff around that time, but a concert in a football stadium is just a whole different,
way different
thing.
vibe.
Yeah, so that blew me away. And Springsteen is obviously just like one of the biggest rock stars ever, so his show is incredible, and he goes for like 4 hours. It's ridiculous, and I think he's been doing that. I mean, as far as I know, he's been doing that
for 4-hour show
years. Yeah, dude,
that's crazy.
and it doesn't even get boring, dude. Like it doesn't feel like 4 hours until like it ends, and you're like, damn, I'm mad tired.
Yeah,
It's like I've been standing for mad long. But yeah, I mean, my parents raised me on his music, so I knew a lot of his stuff by the time I went at 8 years old. So it's just like being in it's just like a togetherness thing.
I'm surprised you never like fully pursued like a rock career,
or I don't know why.
or your raps don't even have too much like your raps actually don't
it's
have
coming.
rock. It's coming. Okay,
it's coming. It's on the way. I'm about to start performing with the band.
That's what's up.
Don't tell anybody. But that's.
Well, I mean, it's on camera, bro.
It's
so.
on. y'all got to keep it a secret. But yeah, I mean, the first shows I did were with bands, so I'm honestly more comfortable performing with a band than just a DJ because I like that energy.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna bring it back, but I don't know. I mean, I had been listening to hip hop the whole time too, and I think it was just like they're both there. You'll hear it.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the melodic elements of my stuff comes from rock for sure. You probably hear it more in some of the new stuff than the stuff that I've put out already, but there's I mean, I played in like jazz groups and orchestras and stuff too, so it's just like kind of pulls a little bit from everywhere.
So what made you want to do a solo career?
Like not having to depend on other people for stuff, honestly. Like being in bands is awesome, and I had a lot of fun in high school doing that, but it was like honestly, so the last band I was in was like my junior and senior year.
So you've been in 2 bands.
Yeah, so the first one was when I was younger,
10 to 13.
Yeah, and then I would do like shows with people or whatever. I play for people and stuff. And I did like solo singer-songwriter stuff every once in a while. I would do like just acoustic sets and stuff like that. Really just for practice, honestly. It helped me just like be comfortable on stage. The first band I was in, I was singing, but I was really the bassist and I was doing background vocals. So I hadn't really had like a frontman situation yet. But then came out of that very quickly and started doing my own stuff. But no, the second band was junior, senior year. It was kind of the same kind of music. It was a little more, it was like the Strokes type stuff. It was like just straight rock. Little like psychedelic type stuff. And it was cool, but it was like, around that age, you don't know what's gonna happen. Like everyone's going off to college. We had one band member that was a year older than us, and the rest of us were juniors. He was a senior, and he was going to NYU. But the rest of us didn't know where we were gonna end up. So it was like, for me, at that point, probably beginning of high school, I knew I wanted to do music. So I was like, if whatever I'm working on in music right now, if it's not serious, if it's not actually gonna go, and if we're not committing to trying to make it happen, like I'd rather just work on something that's like gonna go. And for me, at that age, I don't think a lot of people necessarily know exactly what they want to do. I think a lot of people know that they want to do stuff in music, but it's a daunting thing to like be like, I'm just gonna do it and have a career, So for me, it was like, let me not put that pressure on anybody else because I know what I want, So I was just like, let me just go do it. And that's kind of where that came from, yeah.
Well, even so, like, people don't understand, like, how big the music industry actually is in terms of, like, a job. Like,
yeah.
I knew that was coming. But, I think people just see literally just the artist and the producer, and that's it.
Yeah.
But then there's the engineer, then there's the publicist, then there's the manager, and so on and so forth. And then I think once you actually dive into the logistics of what creates the music industry, I think people would be more willing to want to give that a chance.
Yeah.
I think especially being in like an Asian background, like you don't necessarily know like how big it is, and then your parents literally just see the artist and that's it.
Yeah.
So if you're not like the front runner, it's like, what are you doing?
Definitely. That's one of the my man is dying over here. His allergies?
100%.
Yeah. It's way worse in New York. Way worse. What was I saying? Yeah, no, the industry is really big, and I think I'm definitely glad that I did that record label internship early in high school because it gave me a lot of perspective on just like how PR. I was doing mostly PR stuff there and a little bit of like merchandising stuff for they have a store too. So a little bit of merch stuff, a lot of PR, and it was just good to kind of see how the labels do it because then you can go and take that and do it by yourself. But it's definitely, I've had this conversation with my parents a couple times where it's like it's really hard to kind of like show like success and progress in music. There's not really any tangible things. It's not like a regular job, but like you get a raise and it's like, oh
yeah,
cool, like
sure.
I did something, you know. It's much more of a kind of a slow, steady increase. So
how do you tell your parents that you're not gonna go to college and you're gonna continue with this internship at Fool's Gold?
Oh, that is a story, my guy.
Let me get a couple coughs out.
Yeah. Do your thing.
All right, let's go.
You ready? Strapped in? So I was gonna go to Connecticut College. I was committed to that school, and it was, I want to say, like late June, right after I graduated. I was at Fool's Gold. I had put out options. A bunch of people had hit me up that wanted to work on music, and I was like, okay, this is dope. And it was kind of starting to pick up. And I was looking for any crumb of anything that would be like, all right, this is worth it. Let me just go do this and not go to school, you know? So at a certain point, Powers Pleasant hit me up. Not to throw Powers under the bus for me not going to college, but this is a part of it. Powers Pleasant is Joey Badass's DJ.
Gotcha.
And one of his producers. He's one of the founding members of Pro Era. Grew up in Brooklyn too, kind of around the same scene that I did. He's a drummer first, so we had the same kind of come up just in terms of like being an instrumentalist and doing rock stuff, and then moving into hip hop. So he hit me up after I dropped options and was like, let's work on some stuff. And for me, that was like, oh shit.
Yeah,
like, I was still in high school, so I didn't really know anybody that was really popping like that in music. So he hit me up and we started working on some records, and around that time just things started picking up. When I was working for Fool's Gold, it's a small company that does big projects, so I had really firsthand access to a lot of stuff that, like, you know, working at a major label you wouldn't have gotten. Probably the last month of my senior year, like, we put together a show with Smoke Perp and A-Track and a bunch of other people,
crazy.
And I was like on stage with Smoke Perp, and I was like, whoa, you know. So yeah, I was supposed to go to Connecticut College. Things started picking up, and then one day while I was at Fool's Gold, I stepped out on my lunch break and I just called Connecticut College, and I was like explaining to them, I was like, I have this stuff going on. I considered doing a gap year, but I was like, if I do a gap year, I feel like I'm putting a cap on what I'm doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if I'm gonna do it, I'd rather just do it and not be like, oh, let me give it a year, because you never know. It would have been, I think, a little bit just unrealistic of me to be like, I have a year, and if it doesn't work in a year, it's not worth it. You know? So I just fully withdrew. I explained it to them. The guy in admissions was super cool, and he was like, that sounds awesome, like, do your thing, whatever. So I did that. I told my mom, and she bugged out. She was not happy. My mom is a teacher, and her mom is a teacher, so they were not with the shits. But yeah, I just had to, around that time, that summer, I moved out. I turned 18 that July, so it was kind of like a big turning point. I was like, all right, I'm 18, I'm moving out. Let me just do this for a little bit and just make it happen.
Wait, what'd your pop say?
He let my mom do the the talking. Gotcha. No, but I think he was always low key with it. You know, he just wanted me to do what I wanted to do. So he let me rock. But I have 3 younger sisters, so I think for my parents a big part of it was that they didn't want my sisters to be like, oh, let me just like go do whatever, you know. And it worked out because we've kind of obviously made progress, and it's I'm in a much better position professionally than I was when I started. So they definitely get it now. But it's like to go back to what we were talking about before, it's hard to kind of demonstrate to parents or really anybody like what progress you're making in music, because it's really hard to quantify those things. But I think I'm trying to think what the biggest. I mean, we did K-Town this weekend, and I sent my mom a video from on stage with the crowd.
Yeah, that shit looked lit, man.
That shit
had
was
the whole front just like going crazy for you, bro.
Yeah, that shit was nuts. Shout out to Flannel Albert bringing me out. It was crazy, but the moments like that are for sure kind of like what makes it worth it and what makes them kind of understand what I'm doing, because this is just a clear I'm like, Mom, there's like 800 people here, like, you see what's happening. You know,
it's like, Mom, I made this in my room.
I literally did. All of the songs I did at that show were recorded in my bedroom.
That's crazy.
2 of them I think I actually recorded in my bed. just like, yeah, I didn't, because when I first moved into the spot I'm in, I didn't have a desk, so I would put my laptop and I would plug it in, and I'd have my interface, and I would hold my microphone, and I would just sing, and you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. I mean, it's like,
you know what I appreciate about you too is that at 18 you decided to move out. And because I literally just watched this Gary Vee video like right before you walked in, and it was
guy.
Dude, and it was literally saying how when kids want to pursue their dreams, they still stay at their parents' house. And it's like, that's the biggest juxtaposition that can ever come about, because it's like, how are you going to want to do something that you want to do, but still rely on your parents' help. It seemed like for you, it's like, well, you decided you're not going to go to college. You decided to continue an internship.
Yeah.
And to deal with those consequences, you also decided to leave your parents' house. That way, you don't have to be reliant on what they're giving you, you know?
That's what it was, and I really wanted to be able to focus my attention on, and my energy really, on what I was doing, and not have, like, you know, just the back and forth with them be such a roadblock for me, you know?
Yeah.
So I was like, let me just kind of separate myself from the situation, and just figure it out. So I was couch surfing that summer.
Crazy.
I was with a couple of my friends, just kind of moving around. A bunch of them have studios in their houses, so I was making mad records. And then eventually did move back in with my grandparents for a little bit, which was kind of a good compromise for a while. You know what I mean? Because it was like I was with family. Everyone was like, okay, he's good. You know, we see what's going on. He's here. But was kind of. I mean, I grew up sharing a room with all three of my sisters.
So you're good. Then you can have the smallest space.
Oh yeah,
fine.
bro, lowest maintenance person you'll ever meet. Like, I don't care. We had like 2 bunk beds in our room for a while, and then we took one of them down, so I had like a twin bed in my room.
Nice.
And there was a bunk bed, and then one of my sisters had the twin bed too. And it was just like, you know, I'm used to having no space, and Options I actually recorded in that house in my room there. So I had to wait for a day where nobody was home, and then do it when it was quiet and everything. You know, so it's made it easier for me for sure to just like kind of be low maintenance and like deal with whatever and focus on the music, because that's the most important thing for me. And then I mean, that shit got me to LA. So
did you ever couch surf on Flannel Albert's?
I did not. I don't think I knew him that summer. I did not. No, I met him like later that year, like in the fall, I think.
Yeah.
Nah. He would have been cool about it.
How do you guys meet?
I don't even know, dude. He's just like, oh no, I do. Actually, it's crazy. I have a friend who went to college with him, I think, who actually worked at my high school. And when I was making music in high school, low-key, I have another story about someone that worked at my high school that also makes music with me now. I'll run it back in a second.
Yeah.
But yeah, my friend, shout out to Juliet Baker. Was working at my high school, knew I was like kind of starting to move into hip hop at the end of senior year. I used to like hang in her office all the time. She's mad cool. So she knew I was going to hip hop, and she knew Albert, and she was like, "Oh, like you should check out this dude who also she was like weirdly accurate about
check out this other Asian guy who does hip hop."
Yeah, no, for real. But it was also like the same kind of hip hop too. It was like hella melodic, and like we're obviously very similar, which is how we ended up here. But like, you know, it was like, in hindsight, she had a really good read on his music and my music, and was like, this makes sense.
Oh, nice.
I was like, you could probably A&R some shit. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess we were just kind of connected on the internet for a while, and then he hit me up to do a show at Sunnyvale in Brooklyn in 2017 in the winter. So that was like kind of the winter after I graduated. So I went through the whole summer, the fall. Around that time, we did a show together, and I opened up for him. And then that was his first time for each of us, that was our first time seeing each other's music live and seeing kind of the whole thing, you know? I think that was also actually the first time we met in person, was that at the show. He hit me up. He just saw my music and he liked it, and he was like, "I feel like this would work." So he put me on the bill, and it was my first solo show for this type of music in the city.
That's tight.
Yeah. So this weekend was crazy for that reason, just because that was like 2 years ago now, and it was like,
yeah, it's like 2 years later, you guys are doing the exact same thing, just on a bigger platform.
Yeah, that's the type of thing that for me is like a real progress check, because it's such a parallel. You know, I can compare the two situations, and it's not like there's mad different factors. It's like, no, we did the same thing, but the stage is bigger.
Yeah,
and we're in LA. You know, so it's like that's I guess how that kind of grew. But yeah, and then he put me on with a bunch of his other artist friends that he was working with too. I don't know if you know Jezediah. He's from New York, but he's kind of in Albert's collective, and he's similar to my lane. Yeah, when he comes out here, you feel me? You should talk to him too, for sure.
You know, Instagram is a powerful tool.
A very powerful tool. Shout out to Jezediah, man.
I don't know if you guys actually know how crazy this little button is, where it says followed by A, B, and C.
Yep.
Oh, look, you know, the homegirl Byrie the Siren, and also Rada. Shout out to them, man.
Shout out to Rada.
Shout out to them.
For sure.
Shout out to Rada. I actually don't even personally know Rada yet. We've literally just been talking on the internet for like maybe 4 months.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't even know how she just followed me the other day.
Yeah.
Maybe from Albert? I don't know.
I don't know.
Bro, internet is crazy.
It's crazy, dude,
because
you know the idea, oh God, what's it called?
She's fire though.
6 degrees of separation.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy because Instagram is really I guess that mechanism that allows you to see how connected we all actually are.
Yeah.
Because you know, as I said in the beginning of this podcast, I think I literally found you through Flannel Albert.
it's really rare that I find somebody that is in music that doesn't know at least one person, or isn't at least followed by like one person I know.
You know what's crazy now that we're
What?
talking about this is the only reason why I know any of these Asian artists is because last year my girl had said, "Hey, K-Town Night Market is happening and there's a whole bunch of like
What?
Asian artists on this bill." So I was like, "Oh fuck." I wasn't able to go, but I poached
You looked at that lineup, though.
I poached everybody on that lineup,
That's awesome.
man. It started off with this girl named Demi the Destroyer, and then I seen Lately on there too. And then after them two, it just kept on moving and moving and moving. I was like, "Oh shit, there's actually a lot more Asian artists than I thought there were."
Yeah. There's
I
a
thought I
whole
could just count, like-
lot. Once you get in the rabbit hole, it's a whole thing. And it was crazy doing K-Town this weekend too, because I knew LA had a really big Asian community, but I hadn't really experienced it before. And it was just like, I mean, coming from New York, where like I'm in a hip hop crowd that's like so diverse because it's New York, so it's just like literally whatever, you know. Seeing just an audience full of Asian music fans was crazy, and seeing the way that they responded to us is crazy because it's not always like that as an Asian artist, you know. Which for me actually is one of the most fun things about performing. It's just like the shock value, because I've performed on so many stages where nobody knew who I was and they have no idea what to expect, and then it's like winning crowds over that don't know what to expect and don't know who you are and didn't ask to see you perform. Is like the most rewarding thing for me. We actually did a music video this past winter for a song I have called Shine Up. That was basically, Shine Up actually made a year ago when I was couch surfing, so it was like really, I was in the middle of that. I was really in the thick of it when I made that song, but really in the thick of it. It was a hard time, but that song was really just about kind of the grind, about winning people over and just, you know, trying to just make it happen. And so the video we did for that is we performed at, a lot of my friends are DJs in the city, so we performed at like 5 different parties where people didn't know there was going to be a live performance, and I just went up and did that song, and we just filmed the whole thing and just like tried to see kind of what the response would be. And like we had mosh pits going. It was like,
really,
it was lit, and people had no idea who I was.
As an artist, do you feel like that's one of the greatest achievements you can acquire? Like to
get hell like because I like, especially with the internet now, it's really easy if you're an artist to kind of put an idea in people's heads about what you do and like what your value is and what your worth is before they actually see it. So for me, that's a way, like performing and playing music for people that don't know me and have no prior knowledge of what I do is way more rewarding. Because there's no bullshit there, you know? It's like you can see start to finish what the process was of them seeing who I am, seeing me perform, and then forming an opinion. And it's just, I mean, I think that's kind of the truest progress check you can really have in music. So I love doing that. And that's why I was excited for this, because I'm clearly not from LA. People in LA don't really know me like that. But I knew that it was kind of the right pocket for me to perform in, and that it was a similar lane. So, and it was also the biggest stage I've done by far. And it was the most hype crowd I've done. And I've performed for rooms of people that know me, you know? And this was higher energy and a bigger crowd. So it was just like, you know, it's those types of experiences I think are really important, just for like expansion and growth as an artist for sure. Shout out to Lately too. Basically what happened at K-Town is I was only supposed to do, Albert was going to bring me out to do Bradley, which is the single that we dropped a couple weeks ago. And then Ferragamo, which is my most recent single. And then Lately dropped out, and they were like, yo, do you want to do 2 songs? So
he did drop out.
Yeah. I think he just couldn't make it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I hope he's good. Shout out to Lately. But no, they're like, you want to do 2 songs? And I was like, sure. So I did the 2 songs before Albert's set. They didn't know who I was. They didn't really introduce me. They were like, Lately's not here. Here's Kazi.
Put this guy on stage.
Yeah. It was fun, bro. I was in the Uber on the way to the show and didn't know I was gonna have a set, and I didn't have my music on me, so I had to like go in Google Drive on my phone and like send my shit to Albert. I was like, bro, please tell me you're home and with a laptop and a USB, because I can't get my music right now. So I had to like Google Drive it to him. He was like, it's not shared with me. I need permissions. I was like, fuck. But we made it happen, and then he got a USB. He brought it. He gave it to the sound guy. We just like did those 2 songs. And my set was lit. It was really fun. They were a great crowd. The group before me was also awesome. I feel bad I'm blanking on what their name is right now. I'm gonna remember. After Hours. Oh yeah. After Hours. It was After Hours.
Shout out to Brandon and Josh.
Yeah. No, they were dope. They were super dope. I didn't get to talk to them. I hope hopefully we'll link up at some point while I'm out here, because they were super fire. But they set the tone really right before I went on. So it was an easy set. Really good crowd. And then I went off. Albert did his set and then brought me back out, and it went from like the whole crowd not knowing who I was to then me being able to like reintroduce myself, because I was coming out during a second set, you know what I mean? Which is a rare thing to have, you know? So it was almost like I was doing a show for a new audience and then a show for an audience that totally knew me with separate entrances. You know what I mean?
That's crazy.
So the energy when I came on was crazy the second time because I had only come off like 15 minutes before. So it was still kind of fresh. And they didn't know, like, actually, a bunch of people knew Albert, but not the whole crowd. So they were kind of getting to know him. And they didn't really know me either. But then when I came on, they acted like it was like their favorite rapper bringing out their other favorite rapper.
That's
it
insane,
was
man.
wild. And I've always, if you grow up and you watch like people like Drake and like Wayne, like I grew up in a lot of like Young Money stuff. Just watching like those entrances are always such big moments with surprise guests and stuff like that. And I've always wanted to do that. And it was crazy. It was like,
you got like a little taste of that.
Yeah.
And I think what's
Big
cool
taste
about
of
it,
that.
well, yeah, big taste of it.
Yeah.
But I think what's also cool is that like it happened so unexpectedly. You thought you were just gonna perform that one song with Flannel Albert. Turns out you get like your own set and then reintroduce. Like, I guess what I'm really getting at is the fact that you don't know where these opportunities can lead you.
Not at
You're
all.
coming all the way from New York just to perform one song, then you get your own set and something else in addition to that.
Yeah. No, it was crazy. And more, I mean, it's like every time I take opportunities like that where I don't really have a plan, there's always some cool shit that comes out of it. South by was similar. I went to South by with no plan. I was like, I knew I was going to crash, and that was pretty much it. And I knew I had 2 shows, and I was like, I need to do more shows, and I need to do some sessions or something to make it worth it.
Yeah.
But we flew to Atlanta, and then we drove to Austin from there, did the same thing coming back, went back to Atlanta. No plan, just like kind of working with what comes. But it's a risky way to do things, but it's worked out for me for sure. Definitely been lucky to have just like the universe line things up for me right when I need to, and obviously like that comes from manifesting certain things and like working towards certain things. But it's like at a certain point, there's like, I think there's kind of a gap between what you can accomplish for yourself and what big believer in the universe, what the universe will kind of put in your path. So it's a balance of the two. You have to play your part, and then the rest kind of comes along with that. So I've definitely been feeling that out here though too. Like I came out with like maybe a couple sessions and a couple meetings lined up.
Just move out to Cape Town.
Dude, maybe. I learned how to drive.
You can't drive?
Bro, I'm from New York.
That's right.
I don't know how to do shit. We bird scootered over here, bro. From Studio City.
How much did that cost?
Wasn't too crazy.
Like what, 10?
I don't know. I haven't looked at it.
Oh, shit.
But
Yeah, that's hella far. It's
fun,
already
though.
like a 10-minute drive.
yeah, it's like a 20-minute.
Hey, man. Hey, shout out to you.
Hey, we scooted fast.
You're a
man.
real one, bro.
I had used them in Austin before at South by, but never out here. So I was like, fuck it. And I'm with my DJ Malcolm, and
Shout out to
we
Malcolm,
gotta
man.
try out everything. Shout out to Malcolm.
So, you have the record out, Ferragamo.
Yes, sir.
Any project, any album for 2019?
I think about this a lot, bro, because it's like growing up listening to rock, like hip hop is very single based right now, at least. Rock is very project based. Like albums, I think, are really everything in rock and roll and singer songwriter music and jazz and stuff like that. So I grew up always thinking I wanted to conceptualize a project. That'd be like my masterpiece, whatever,
Yeah.
In hip hop now, I honestly think that it's like I care more about people hearing the music and hearing what I'm doing, and I don't want there to be any skips. You know what I mean? So far I've only dropped singles, and I think I'm gonna do that for a while. Just because I'm still growing as an artist too,
Yeah.
I could make a project right now. I have like several projects worth of music, but like don't necessarily think I need to release it that way. Because I want people to really, I mean, like when we were talking about doing live shows, I want people to know the words and like sing along, and like I want it to be a whole experience. So, I want to make sure that I give people the music in a way that they can keep up with it, and they can really sit with it and grow with it and like enjoy it the same way I did for those albums and stuff. And I did that when I was younger. Obviously, we're adults, like we have shit to do. We got stuff going on, so it's a little harder to run through a project, I think. So I just want people to hear it, want people to appreciate it, and really understand what I'm doing, and give them a little bit of that time.
Hey, man, I like where your mind's at.
Yeah, dude. We'll see though. I want to do an EP hopefully sometime next year. I'm getting there. I'm getting there for sure. I mean, it's been 2 years since I dropped my first song, so the singles have been great, and it's gonna be good for a while. And I'm definitely gonna continue in that vein. But
if it ain't broke, don't break it. Keep
Keep
on dropping singles until people get tired of that shit, and it's like, all right, here's the EP.
That's the thing. They're already tired of it. It's a hard thing, bro. Like there's people that have been kind of riding with me from the beginning that just found me the same way you did, just like through the internet and stuff, that hit me all the time. Like, when are you dropping a project? Like, stop with these fucking singles, But it's really, for me, it's really just about growing and making sure that I'm not only satisfying the people that are here that have been showing love, but also expanding and kind of growing that movement. Of course. So we'll get there hopefully soon.
Hopefully you definitely will, man.
Whole lot of new music coming though.
You have a good head on your shoulders, bro. So I have like no worries about you and like
bro.
where you're going. Kazi, where can everybody find you?
I am on Instagram at Kazi, just Kazi. Everywhere else at Air Kazi, like AI, like Air Jordan.
Air Kazi.
Air Kazi.
Is that your real name, Kazi?
Pass. It is now, my guy.
Okay, then let me ask you that. How do you come up with the name Kazi?
All right, so I'm glad you asked. My dad is Chinese. My mom is Irish and Italian. The Irish part is not a part of this story. I'm sorry to my Irish family. It didn't fit in. But you know, like the Italian Renaissance, the Medici family, and all of them who funded like Da Vinci and all that stuff.
Only reason why I know about any of that was because of Assassin's Creed.
That's fair. But yeah, so the Medici family were the family in the Italian Renaissance that funded a lot of these kind of like Renaissance artists that did everything.
Yeah.
And when I came up with the name, the original name, which was Cosimo, I was doing a lot more than I'm doing right now. I was making videos for people. I was engineering people. I was doing visual art. I was doing theater tech. It was like crazy. So I was really on my Renaissance man shit. And I thought that was what I wanted to do as a career for a while. I was like, I knew I wanted to do music, but I also wanted to do everything. I was like, I'm going to be on some Kanye shit, but like more extreme, you know?
Yeah.
Spread very thin. Realized very quickly that was stressful and I didn't want to do all those things. But when I started, Cosimo Medici was kind of the first one, I think, to start funding people like Da Vinci and that type of artist. So
wow,
that's how I pulled from the Italian side. I was like, let me go by Cosimo, and then I basically just switched the spelling to Mandarin syllables like pinyin. So it's Kazimo, so it's Kazimo, and then just got shortened to Kazi.
Damn,
that's what happened.
I like that.
There you go. I don't think I've ever
really
told
like
this story in an interview. So
I'm
happy
I'm the first to ask that
sir.
shit, man. Look, that was insane. I'm gonna make that a clip just for you, so people fucking know.
Yeah.
This is the lunch table, food for thought. I'm Nico Blitz, Kazi, and we are out, everybody. Yay!
Peace.